I realized I've been playing with Alessia all day yesterday. How fucking selfish I am. Like every decision I make, it's good to do with me. Just, I'm gonna make myself a little better. I'm gonna study for me. Gonna work for me. Gonna eat because I want to when I want to. And like after an hour with Alessia, I'm like, Jesus, she needs a lot of my like decision making process focused on her.
Oh yeah. Well, I was you realize like so Naomi got a scan from the obstetrician on Tuesday, and she sent me a video of the scan. I haven't seen the baby since like the first scan, so it was like nothing effectively. And so now it's bigger, and so she videos. But then like it just realized, it clicked in my head like, oh, I haven't really fucking thought about this much. There's like a baby, and then because just to your point, like Alessia is just all consuming all the time. It's just like, yeah, where to next? What are we doing? Let's play. Let's eat. Fucking watch dragons. Like, let's get after it. It's like, and I'm sitting there like watching this 2-minute video of Naomi like getting scanned and his baby moving around, and I'm like, ah, it's
going. Oh well, you knew what you were doing this time at least.
No, I know I did, but like it's just I'm not. It's not like a bad thing. It's just like headspace wise, when you have the first child, it's just you and your partner, and so it's like, oh, you have headspace to consider the impending child, and now it's so you have a child that takes all said headspace, and that you're like, oh well, what do we? Oh, that's right, this is happening as well. It's like, cool. Yeah. Well, so I've been reading. You can't see this. It's like reversed, isn't it? So, Goggins' book, and I thought it'd be a good little book to talk about. I haven't finished it.
Which one is it? I know we've got two.
He's got two. So he's got one called Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
He released it. That was his sort of first book that kind of brought him to prominence, and then he's got this one called Never Finished. And so the whole concept is this sort of, like the title would imply, like you are never finished as a person, so you're sort of always progressing. And he talks about his journey into this constant pushing himself. I guess he's very much like a mental guy, like, overcoming, that voice inside your head to sort of say stop, or, always pushing your body. And like, I don't know, I find there's some merit to it. I feel like if you're reading the book as well, you're a very specific kind of person. You don't need to be convinced of, like, either you're kind of like semi-convinced that like, yeah, I get it, like push yourself, that's cool, or you're reading it because you think he's a fucking nut job and you want to like read what he's saying. But like he's very intense human being.
Yeah.
His book. And I'm sure you've heard him on Rogan, or like he had another one on another podcast called Modern Wisdom. The thing I'm curious about, I guess, when you hear this guy, so like, for example, like he talks about these ultra marathon runs that he does, right? And these guys are, I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but like they're fucking crazy. They're like, so the 100-mile ultra marathons, they run for 24 hours straight. So they don't sleep. Like, or they take 20-minute nap, and they just keep running for 24 hours. Another one called the Moab 240.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, they run for 240 miles, which is like 400 fucking kilometers or something stupid, right? over 3, I think they've got 110 hours, and I don't know how long that is. It's like 5 days, I think, to complete, 4.5 days to complete this race. And again, like barely sleeping, like just going the whole time. But like the thing that's sort of getting my attention is the question I'm getting to. Is he kind of has this like never stop mentality. And the thing that I wonder is, well, after you, like he says, like, every day I run, like every fucking day I run. And I'm like, what happened the day after you finished the Moab 240? Did you go for a run on that day? Like, like you have to have not run on one day. Like I appreciate the consistency, but like, you didn't run the day after the Moab 240, right? like, there's a line. Like and I guess, what do you think? Like, he pretends like there's no line, but like, there's still a line.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know about this second book, but I know about the first one more. And yeah, I have heard him on other different channels, like you've spoken. But yeah, it's just, and the people that I know that have taken what he's talking about seriously are not exactly the people I would say I respect their kind of opinion when it comes to exercise. Because generally, like, the stuff he's referring to most of the time feels like is around like physically overcoming your body, like using mental ability to overcome yourself physically. And the guys, I just don't see them as very, like, it doesn't seem like a long-term plan. It's very short-sighted. It's like, I agree, it sounds amazing, and I love that attitude, but he just takes it too far. And maybe, like, yeah, he just takes it too far in my head. I think he's preaching the wrong kind of, or going about it the wrong way. Like, doesn't that intensity just lead to, not many people can keep it up, and they just feel like you're a failure at the end of it because you can't do that intensity? It's like 100% or zero. Is that what we're saying? Like, is that what he's getting at more in the book? Like, always 100%? Because I mean, from what you're saying, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he has a I think the second chapter in the book, he has this kind of thing where he tells these stories, and then he kind of has a, what he calls an evolution. So like the second evolution, I think, or third one is it's called Win Every Minute, and sort of, you know, the idea that you've got, I think, 86,000 minutes or something like that in a day, whatever. Yeah, something like X amount of minutes a day, and your battle is to win every minute, because you win 1 minute, like, you know, you gotta listen to the voice in your head when it tells you to quit, and when you hear that voice, you gotta like overcome it. And so so the goal is not to win, you know, the whole race, or if you're running a marathon, the goal is just to take one more step. And by taking sort of one more step, like, you don't. But like, yeah, to your point, it's just like, it's sort of never ending. It's just like this constancy to it that is like unrealistic. Like, and I think I've heard him on other channels and things that, you know, his body is his knees are a fucking mess. Like, he's got like no, like, I think he's talked on Rogan, he's got no cartilage in his knees, and he's like, I mean, he's actually had he had a knee operation that I had learnt about through my experience with knee problems. But again, like, did you get up the day after your knee surgery and go for a run? Like, you're not a fucking idiot. Like, you would have done your rehab, and you would have, like, you know, built your knee back up so you didn't fuck it up. Like, and like, I know the rehab for that surgery is like 18 months. It's like a intense, like, they break your leg, they reattach your ligament on your tibia. Like, it's a fucking huge surgery. So like, if you cock around with it, like, you'll hurt yourself really. You won't walk, like, period. I don't care who the fuck you are, you won't walk. It's like, so like, I admire, like, you know, his goal is to be the baddest motherfucker in the world. All right, cool. Be a badass, push yourself, be a CEO, like, you know, show this mental fortitude side of you. But like, give me a little slice of reality sometimes. Like, just be honest and say, like, you know what, I ran every day except the days after my surgery, or except the days after Moab 240. Like, all right, cool. We have a realistic picture of a human being.
That's right.
Not like, you know, not this impossible. Like, to your point, like, it's just this like impossible, unrealistic, and frankly, like, I'm not calling him a liar by any stretch of imagination, but like, it does create a false sense of reality.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we think about I mean, do you know the guy, the Liver King?
Yeah.
So like, he's getting, I hear he's getting sued heaps for like painting a false picture of reality because he does take steroids, and so like, I mean, arguably, is it the same thing? Like, are you misleading people, saying do it every single day, and the assumption is, okay, well, fuck, I'll do it every day at their own detriment?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if his mentality is the idea that, because he's not an idiot, like, is the idea that you need to show the extremity of it to get people to give 80% of it, or to show them the lesson. Like you need the extreme goodness to be able to see what good looks like, so you can at least try to attain it. Because like otherwise, like I hear my friends doing it, and he's not too sharp at the fitness stuff particularly, and not particularly disciplined. But it just, and like he ends up being fucked from it. And he says it all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to Goggins it. And then he's just quietly suffers afterwards. Like he won't say anything, but he's in miserable pain, and he's like having to not do things. He won't tell anyone or say anything. And I guess that's part of the process, but like he would do it. He would take it differently too, right? He would be like, I'm going to go do a marathon, not train barely at all. And then go and just do the marathon and say, I'm Gogginsing it, or whatever you call it. And he would just run it. Yeah. And he'd be absolutely fucked. I mean, he'd get good results, but how, like, what is the goal? Because if Goggins' goal is to be a badass motherfucker, okay, I guess you're achieving it with this way to some degree, to some people. But for a lot of people like us, I feel like what you're preaching is kind of silly. I don't think you're a badass. I think you're irresponsible. Like,
yeah, I agree. Like, I don't. There's a part of me that does admire it. Part of me that likes that kind of unattainable. What's the word? Like, you need, you like, it's this sort of folklore hero kind of vibe to it, right? Where it's you like the mythology, it's the unattainable peak. David Goggins is the bad motherfucker. Like, he works so hard. Like, there's a part of me that likes that, but then there's a part of it that's like, a misrepresentation of what of a way to be of a pathway to success. And to your point, like an unsustainable, like, you think about a lot of young kids who want to get into the gym, or want to be a soccer player, whatever it is. It's like, I'm just going to train. Their body like breaks one day. It's, well, fuck, like, the better way, the more researched way, or more socially accepted way, is to take a break and to balance your load and load manage and be healthy. And you think about a 12-year, 15-year career rather than a fucking 6-month one, like, which is like a healthier way to approach that kind of a journey, where yes, you need to be mentally tough and push your body at times, but then again, you need to take a break and sort of stop. I do like his, I guess, sort of no excuses mentality. Like, he does seem to take responsibility when he's made mistakes, or where he feels like he's quit along the way. And I do resonate with this kind of, all right, it doesn't really fucking matter what your problem is. Like, shut up and do what you say what you're going to do. And so, like, that kind of mentality resonates with me. It's like, well, we can all make an excuse. Like, we've all got a valid reason to make an excuse. We're all overtired. Everyone's overworked. Like I think about it in corporate. Like, I'm sure you have it all the time. Like, people say, oh, yeah, Dan, I'll get you that report by Friday. And then Friday comes around. It's like, what the fuck is the report, dickhead? Like, and so people make excuses. And so he's very much just like anti-excuse, like, overcome, like, win the minute, right? Overcome that little bitch in your head and deliver. And so there's a part of me that, like, I like that. I think that's really good. I think that's if you can translate that healthy to your world, then I think there's a lot of merit in that, and a lot of whereas the overtraining is sort of unhealthy, it's the other side where it's like, that's healthy. I think, to learn to stop making excuses.
Yeah, definitely. Like, is there a broader message here than just training? I mean, that's what he seems to put it to.
Yeah.
Is like a physical overcoming. But I guess if you can do that on like a physical pain sense, then like, because you're overcoming two things, the mental anguish and the physical pain, then surely you can do it on things that don't require as much mental anguish. I think that's from my side of it, being somebody that's generally likes the intensity of things, like I want to take it to the nth degree and really see how far I can push something. Knowing that, I think that's probably why one of the reasons I worry about him, because I see those negative behaviors in myself and go, I can see what would happen if this went too far. Or more so, like if I jumped on that bandwagon when I was younger or didn't know as much, that I probably would have pushed like that. And I go, that would have been bad for someone like me. But maybe somebody that doesn't have the vigor or like have the like means to be like, no, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it like 110%. Maybe it's more of a message for people like that. Because at least to me, I think that's probably why I get triggered by it a bit more. It's going, if I did what you're doing, man, I would be in a really rough place in my life.
Is there not a part of you that kind of wants to find the point where you break?
You look, I have found those in different ways. And I think I love that Frederick Gross book that you lent us, the philosophy of walking. One of the things it talks about, like when you summon a mountain, you're simultaneously conqueror and conquered.
Yeah.
When you do some big event, you are both like completely overwhelmed by doing the activity, mentally, as well as realizing how amazing the event was. But I don't see that when I do something physically to that nth degree, like sitting in that ice bath for 20 minutes. The event at the end always feels like, why did I do 21 minutes? And like he's talking about, what was that book called again? Never Stop or Keep Going?
Never Finished.
Never Finish. That's what worries me, is it's like the idea of pushing myself and keep pushing myself, there is no end to it. So it's like, even if you try, like you could always be more lonely. You could always be more depressed. You know, you could always be in a worse place. So when I think about those extremes, I just feel like it's never good enough.
There is something that is sort of hopeless. Is that a word, about like being never finished? It's like, oh fuck, like it's just never finished. Like that sounds exhausting. That sounds like, what's the point then? Like, why even start, right? Like, but there is a part of me that does wonder what like, in a weird way, like what breaking looks like what is, like, you know, people talk about like burnout and like breaking point, or whatever I can call it. Like I know now that I mean, that's changed for me significantly in the last couple of years versus when I was 21, 22, when I thought life was busy, and now I'm like, oh, this is much busier. And I know, but there is a part of me that kind of wonders, how much more can I squeeze in? How much more can I push? How much more can I squeeze out of life? And when, you know, what is my actual breaking point? Like, and in a sense, there's a part of me that I think wants to find it, to be like, oh, well, that's good. You found it. Now you're finished. You can take a break. Congratulations. Like, it's this sort of, you know, and I wonder maybe if maybe he's looking for that too. Like, when can he actually feel like he can take a break if his body actually tells him, like, this is where we stop? Like, because even in the book, he's like, you talk about the Moab 240, where he had to stop. Like, he's like quit one of the races early because his body, he was like literally dying, and he realized that, and he stopped. He put his hand up and said, okay, take me out of the race. Like, I need a medic. But then maybe there's something that's sort of like satisfying about finding that stage where it's like, yeah, this is where I break.
Was he satisfied? Did he go back and do it again?
No, he did. He went back and ran it again. He wasn't satisfied, but at least he found it, I guess. Maybe that's what he was looking for. He wasn't looking for the...
I think there's a great danger in that, though. It's like at the expense of finding that tipping point, particularly now when there's so much on the line for you as well. It's not just about you. It's like there's a lot of danger in it. And I think just because of the other things that you're responsible for that you just can't afford to break down for. I think as well, so like that makes it hard, but also like, do you take a break after you train? Like, that's winning a couple minutes, and then you have some time afterwards to take a breather, have your shake, look at the sun. Like, those breaks exist amongst you pushing yourself. And
Yeah.
Like, aren't you challenging yourself and failing on those reps? Like that, the extremity of what you're thinking, I feel, is so holistic that you'd need your whole life to crash around you. You'd need things to fall out of place, you to like lock up yourself in a room, and then you've finally met your breaking point. You should never hope for such horrible things in your life. Like, unfortunately, is over time, life will throw those breaking points at you, no matter what. Suffering will occur to the degree where you need other people on a level that you didn't understand. And that's a breaking point in its own way. We talk about that mental toughness. It proliferates in all those areas. If you fail because you got too much on and you end up, what I see or vision of breaking is like a shell of a human, emotional trauma could do the same kind of thing. So I think it's like super dangerous to look for that when it will find you on your own. And I also think that you're failing and you're finding your breaking points regularly by training, by pushing yourself to get up early. How early can you get up and make your life work? Those adjustments and those refinements are you pushing against boundaries that you question whether you'll break or not. And I'm sure you found adjustments during it, right? You've tweaked some things, you made some things better. Like, I feel like the reflective life is a life in which we are finding those breaking points so we can then adjust so that we can make a sustainable state of living, a philosophy for ourselves.
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess it's like almost the small breaking points, right? Like there's little parts of the day where it's like, okay, that's it. That's what I got. That's where I've pushed. But yeah, no, so I agree. And it does make it more sustainable. I do just find it hard to not jump from one thing to the next in like from a pushing standpoint. So it's like, all right, like I've finished the gym, go back home, like got to clean up, got to start work, got to take care of Alessia, got to, do other things to keep me moving. But I guess you're right though. It's even in those other little things. It's like, okay, this is the breaking point of housework. This is the breaking point. All right, Alessia, you got to play by yourself. I can't do it anymore. Like I can't play with you. It's been an hour, whatever it's been. Like it's little breaking points in your day. I guess by testing where those are, you start to learn how much you have, I suppose.
At least
kind of what you're saying, right?
What you're willing to break for, how much more time you need to give. Like there's points, like we're talking about Alessia before we jumped into the chat. It's like you said, after an hour, just like I just can't do anymore. But I probably could have stopped after 30 minutes. But I realized that there's more to this than just how I feel. Like there's the relationship to build and everything else. And I think it's that ability to have that self-reflection. Because otherwise, the priorities for Goggins are not the same priorities for everybody else. So it's like his training and everything is where he's finding his endpoints. But there's like, he must be sacrificing a lot of other things, not just his physical body, but relationships, other deals, maybe even life experiences to do what he's doing. Whilst you've decided not to, very notably and wisely so, because his life will be a lot of suffering and will continue to be, but he's suffering differently. But yeah, so like maybe there's that applicableness to what he's saying in keep going, fight through the mental anguish, but those breaking points exist throughout our days without less extreme examples.
Yeah. It's interesting. He kind of relishes a bit in the pain. I think I heard on a podcast where like he did this 100-mile, he did his first 100-mile run, and I think just apparently your body starts breaking down in a really odd way after a long run. And so he did the first run, and his body was sort of breaking down. And he thought and then his wife at the time was worried about needing to take him to hospital, and he was in pain. And he sort of said, like, he told her to stop. I want to kind of enjoy the suffering for a minute. Like I've worked hard to feel this. Like I don't really want to go to the hospital just yet. I want to enjoy the suffering. And I guess you kind of use that word a few times, and it's made me sort of think a little bit. Like, I get, you're right. There's like two edges. There's two sides to it, right? There's like self-imposed suffering, and then there's like the suffering that like shit happens, right? Like life's gonna happen around you, and it's like problems will arise. And I feel like he's like really leaning into this self-imposed suffering. Like it's almost as if the greatest gift, but like he is seeking some level of satisfaction from self-imposed suffering.
Do you think?
And
do you think that is a good thing? Like that satisfaction? Because I feel like that's real. That could be taken as a real ego-driven thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've suffered more than you, and everyone loves it. Everyone will always say that in any context. Oh God, I'm so tired. Like I've worked so hard, and they say that because they want to talk about how much more tired or how much harder they've worked than the other person. Like, you know, find me someone who doesn't think that they've worked or suffered more than someone else. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, they might say, oh yeah, I'm sure there's a couple people, but like, you know, I've had it pretty bad.
This week's been the worst.
It's like, well, fuck, like I said before, everyone's got an excuse.
But then there's that difference in suffering too, when I guess when you're self-imposing it, it's even more admirably looked upon, right? It's like, what'd you do? Oh,
yeah.
I
You're
think
right.
I'm a big fan of the self-imposed suffering. And I find myself noticing that I've been doing it less than usual lately. So like things like fasting or the cold exposure, I think is a really good one. The heat exposure, those ones predominantly, because exercise doesn't feel like suffering anymore. But now that I'm not doing those as much, I often think to myself, geez, I'm soft. Like I feel soft. I feel like less. I just have a better word, no better phrase than feel soft, like malleable, like things can change and I feel susceptible to them, you know? So I think that, you know, that self-imposed suffering is really good because it's a stoic thing too. I really like the stoicism stuff. I love that because it makes the things afterwards, like you come out of that ice bath and the rest of your day is prime. Like how much worse can it be than sitting in a chest freezer for like 5 minutes? You can't be.
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck, you jump at like a great example. You popped into the pool water and you go, gee, that's warm. It was just a real positive thing, right? And immediately in my head, I go, wow, isn't that wonderful contrast? The thing is what someone like Goggins is doing is it doesn't feel like it allows for that contrast. Like life,
to like have that relief.
I believe life should be enjoyed as well. And like you're doing the suffering without having the joyous parts seems to make it really redundant. Like, isn't a philosophy for life should be life affirming? Like and so if your mentality is to constantly suffer, that's not a life affirming philosophy to live by, because you're not, it's not like positively contributing to life. So so when I see that kind of the thing in him, I just don't see, I see a lot of aggression. I see a lot of negative traits come through with the ability to do what he's doing at a great cost to a personal gain for himself. Just an ability to enjoy where he's at, right? Like to enjoy the parts where you can relax. Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe that's going a bit off, but yeah, it does. I do like the imposed suffering. I just think that it needs to have a reason, right? Like,
yeah, you need to take a moment for like an accomplishment, right? Like you need to take a moment to like enjoy how far you've come, or take a moment to like recognize that your decisions have taken you somewhere. Like, and it doesn't have to be, you know, crippling pain from having run 100 miles. It can be like some other simpler reward or something that's actually, you know,
they can be great.
Not so suffering orientated, right?
It can be great. Like the extremes are never a good place to live in. Like that's the absolution that is just too much. Like even like you started saying with like I run every day. Like that's just like give some context, eh?
You don't.
You don't. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't.
it's
Like there's circumstances where
like
you won't for your own family and better health. Like what is the message that you're preaching?
I think what you said before was interesting though. Like you're sort of feeling soft, and I wonder like he kind of talks about this a bit as well. Like he kind of builds his reputation up about being some bad motherfucker, and then he got invited to do another 100-mile race, hadn't done one for a while, had his knee surgery, kind of like worked his way back into it again. And I guess like there's, you use the ice bath as like a reference point. Like there's, I had it just yesterday, and then I hadn't had one for like a month. I was like, geez, I wonder if I can still do it. I wonder if I can, I remember how much the fucking cold one hurt. Like that really hurt. Like, and you kind of, you know how much you went through, and you do feel like less if you don't do as much. Like like I know one day I'll stop waking up at 4 in the morning, right? Like it's just not gonna, like I just can't do it forever. Like I will start getting up at 6 or 7 or whatever it is again. But then there'll be a day, 3 months into that journey, it's like, oh fuck, remember I used to get up at 4 in the morning? Like, yeah, that was really hard. Like, yeah, like it make me anxious and I'll get nervous.
Yeah.
I was like, but I want to, I want to do it again. And then it's like, you kind of work yourself up into this state. But then there's this, like, now it's like, I'm afraid to stop waking up that early because like, if I stop doing it, I have to start doing it again. Like I'm
That's
already
right.
here. Like I'm kind of fucking tired, but like, I'd rather just like be tired than be rested and then have to get tired again because I knew I could live it tired, right? Like, I'd rather just do the ice bath every fucking day and get used to it rather than have to quit and then you have to go through the suck of like redoing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I
So
get
it's,
maybe he's coming from that spot, like where he's like, he's just kind of building on it, right? He just wants to, he doesn't want to like restart.
I think so. And like maybe maybe like contextually too, maybe we're just thinking of it too extreme, like not just restart, but maybe even what you're saying, like he has the knee surgery and he runs every day. So he gets up after the knee surgery, puts his running shoes on, goes out the front, because that's as far as he can do today, goes back inside, and then repeats the process the next day until he can take a step and then, 100 steps and whatever else. So like maybe there's logic in that. Because you're right. I think one of the biggest fears about exercise, I remember as kids, we would talk about this with weight training, was we'd be like, we'd train. And I remember taking a break and going back and training it again. And you'd go right to where you were at left because you're a kid. And it would just be so hard. And you would be so sore the days following. You would just be like, never stop. I remember like taking a break when I was like 18 or 17. And then just being traumatized and not breaking again until I was in my mid-20s. I'm just like, this is no way. I'm just not going to do it. I'm always going to be lifting something. Because, it is, you're totally right. That backlash is worse and it's harder to get over. I think they talk about addiction withdrawals, like the first time, not withdrawals, but maybe tendencies or feedback loops. So the first time you try to withdraw from an addiction, you'll end up and you fail and you go back, you tend to go back harder. And then the next time you go around it, like you go right back to where you left off. So you're starting at a real high baseline in the same way with weight training, right? So you've taken off your addiction, you've come back to the same dose and you realize that that's, with addiction or with, it's, I guess, a bit different with weight training because you can keep leveling up quite quickly with a lot of habits and things that are addictive. But when you go and you lose that and you come back and try to quit it again, apparently that withdrawal is even worse and it just keeps getting harder every time. Because I think like you said, it's that anxiety in your head, as well as that is your entry level is much higher again. So this withdrawal process of like removing addictions becomes harder and harder and harder. So I guess it does make some sense when you're talking about like not stopping. There is that kind of mentality in it too, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, exercise is probably equally as addictive, right? Like, and even like, I don't know, in a sadistic sort of way, I guess suffering, if he's kind of building on his own suffering, like, self-imposed suffering. And I guess your point, like ego and pride, and like, oh, I overcame that pain or problem, or I ran that distance I didn't think I could. Like, that's addictive too. Like, there's a hell of a dopamine kick you get out of proving yourself wrong and proving others wrong and whatever you want to call it. Like that's very addictive as well. But it's also, it also becomes terrifying when it's like, all right, shit, like I hit that once, or like I did that weight once, like I did the ice bath for 20 minutes once time, and now I'm 10 minutes in, I'm freezing my ass. So I was like, really want to get out right now. like, yeah, and I guess that's probably what's missing in his conversation is like the moments when you reset your boundaries, and like when you start like pushing it again, because life happens, things get in the way, you get sick, you get injured, it's not your day today, whatever it is, you slept bad, whatever it is, like, all right, well today, it's either one of two things. Is one, it's a chance to see if you can push a little bit harder on the existing boundary, or maybe it's just not there, and you just got to figure out when it's time to like take a step back, rest, and try again the next day. Like, you're not gonna, and I get that kind of sort of find the time to strike, I guess, narrative is a bit missing, and I get, like, I like the consistency, push, but like, I mean, you think about Olympic, an Olympian, right? They got 4 years. They're trying to peak at 4 years, right? So they're not gonna, like, they're cycling through training cycles to like get better and better and better. They're trying to time themselves to strike in 4 years, right? So like, you gotta figure out when your time to strike is, and maybe that's not today. Maybe that's not running every day. Your time to strike comes in a different way.
I think maybe you're catching it in there. I think in the phrase, right? You've got to figure out. Like, I think it comes with what he's saying then. It's like, never stop just trying to figure it out. Like, constantly, like, because the message in my head is like positive self-talk. Do it. You can do it. Not, you're not going to do it. And like that positive self-talk comes from like intentional direction, like where you're making those judgments and deciding where to go, what you're going to do. And I think that's part of it too. Like, surely there must be a degree of like regular reflection for the guy where he's like, okay, I want to get here. How the fuck am I going to get here? And where he'll actually make a plan. He'll be like, this isn't working and this is, and add more, but he doesn't stop going towards that goal. Even if that means there's a day where he needs to take a break to write about that goal. Or I don't know what the right phrase is. It's probably not in line with what Goggins thinks at all, but I think maybe that's not part of it too, is it's just the fact that it's the reflecting on the work, having a clear direction with a positive attitude. But that's got to be the way to get there. Like, does he preach much about like a mental state, or is it just kill it?
Well, no, he preaches more like your mental state's built on your on like evidence, right? Like, he's not so much a self-talk kind of guy. It's like you, proof is in the pudding kind of thing. Like, you do it, and you build your confidence on your actions, not on your self-talk. And I guess he doesn't talk too much about planning and strategizing, I guess, but I mean, he does seem to have these kind of like goals to run these ultra marathons and other stuff like that. But yeah, he's definitely more building on evidence, on consistency. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, there's different stages to the planning, like different, you got to spend one day, getting your gear ready for the hike. One day you learn, you got to check the map. You got to be good at map, learning where you're running and how to run different trails and how to run, all right, well, this is going to be a 17-mile run. I got to do X, Y, Z. Like, there's a lot of planning goes involved. It's not just like get out there and run 240 miles. There's other things to it that you kind of need to think about in your plan. Okay, so whatever you're trying to build, then you're trying to make a plan for that, for what you're trying to build, I guess.
Yeah, like, I hope that's more the message then. It's kind of like, once you figure out what you want, go for it. But I mean, I guess after this chat, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, it isn't like he does have this kind of mentality, like he sort of says this phrase called "perform without purpose," where it's like, just if you don't know what you're doing, just show up anyway and keep working at something. Like,
Yeah,
again, like
that's very true.
yeah, I mean, I admire that.
The professional shows up. Yeah, I'm not a big believer in finding purpose, so to speak. I think you're right. Like it's like passion is just around occasionally. You know, it's the
Yeah,
consistency that irons out the mistakes.
yeah. It's more
Well,
about
what do you reckon
discipline
then?
and motivation.
What do you reckon then after this chat? You reckon you'll finish the book?
Yeah, I will. No, it's one of those books you got to figure out what you need to take from it, and I'll definitely finish it. And but yeah, you're right. There's a goodness to it in the discipline and the consistency and the, like, don't make excuses. Like, love it, but like there's a danger to the lack of transparency around reality. Like, like just be realistic. Like, shit happens. Like, you know, what happens if shit happens. So like I'd love, if I ever had a chance to talk to him, I'd be like, did you run the day after your surgery? Like, would be the first question I'd ask him. Like, I'd need to know these things.
Yeah, please. That would be great. Can you email him?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of
Yeah.
He must have some sort of mailbox. I'm just confused, just wondering. Your title
Maybe
says
just tweet at him or something.
Yeah.
You say you run every day, but like,
because I fucking ran off the fucking Moab.
Yeah. I ran 200 miles after my knee surgery first day. Like, I ran on them crutches. You saw me out there on them crutches running.
He's gonna be the next Ronnie Coleman of ultra marathons this time, though. He's
Yeah.
sitting there in a little fucking scooter, getting.
The other thing as well, like, he's clearly bringing. We'll run that in a minute, but he's clearly bringing a lot of prominence to ultra marathon running, right? Like, I kind of knew about the background, but he's bringing a lot of eyeballs to it, right? So like, but there are people who do ultramarathon running who are a fuck ton better at it than he is.
Yeah.
Like, like who
and not fucking Coca-Cola and have no carbon.
Who aren't killing themselves when they do this every time. Like,
that's such a good point.
I stumbled across this YouTube video. Of course, YouTube, they know what you buy and what you read, and then they give you content that makes you engage. This, guy, Moab 240, breaking the record. I'm like, oh, who the fuck are you? I watched it, and of course this guy ran the Moab 240 in some record-breaking time. His name wasn't David Goggins. It was some other motherfucker. Like,
never wrote a book about it.
Didn't write a book. He's not famous. He's just a guy who runs a lot. It's like, okay, well, you don't need to be the baddest motherfucker in the whole wide world to run an. There's like 100 people who do this with him. Like, he's not the only person running 100 miles. Like,
there's a guy at my old work that would run the ultra marathons. Normal looking dude. Yeah. Nothing wasn't about anything particularly crazy. He was like, it's not too bad.
It's good for a run. Yeah,
get used to it. Cool.
You don't need to like run in there and Navy SEAL the shit out of it. You just
so funny. That's a really really good point.
Right? Like,
it is a really good point, isn't it? Like, what's he spouting about? Like, it's not like he's doing it with one.
Exactly. You're not. It's not like he's Elliot Kipchoge, so you're running yourself 2-hour marathons or some shit. Like, all right, you're a badass. You run long distances, but you're coming in like 10th, man.
Yeah,
like, there's like a few guys ahead of you.
We should do one on podcasting. I mean, with all our repertoire, but how to actually make a year's worth of podcasts and just swear at people, be super aggressive. Just do it. Just do it.
Don't be a little bitch.
Boom, done.
Yeah,
something crazy. It's funny. All right, man.
All right, man.
Good to talk to you.
You too. Thank you.
See you next time.